Welcome to Studio Crete. We're the old show brought back to life for an all-new season to explore the arts and, dilemedo, culture within a Cretan perspective. That's right. On Similes Ekbombi, we have Kelly, who's going to tell us about the symbolism of the island of Spinalonga, and George, who'll discuss the art of playing the Lyra. So enjoy the show. I promise there's no clarina, but today we have Liras.
Next, I'd like to discuss Spinalonga. Spinalonga is a tiny island located just off Vasili, which is one of the 4 states of Crete. And while there's a lot of history surrounding Spinalonga, it's probably best known as the leper colony in the 20th century. So from 1903 to 1957, it was used as a refuge for people who had been affected by leprosy. And during their time there, people who had leprosy were given medical attention, food, water, and amenities that they weren't necessarily given on mainland Crete because they were kind of sheltered in caves and not really, it wasn't really brought to light. Now though, Spinalonga is a lovely little tourist area. There's a fortress, which I highly recommend that you go and check out. There are boats leaving every 30 minutes, so it is a nice little day trip to go and have a look. A lot of history there too.
G'day guys, welcome to another episode of Studio Crete. My name is Manoli and I have George Vadakis with me today. He is a prominent Cretan musician and a much loved member of the club. How you going, George?
Not too bad, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, fantastic.
That's true.
Just wondering, for the people at home who are watching, who might not know a bit about you, do you mind giving them a little bit of an insight?
Yeah, so obviously my name is George Vadakis. Originally from Sydney, New South Wales. My background is Greek, of course. I'm only 1/4 Cretan, but I like to say I'm full Cretan. In regards to myself and the Lyra, I've been playing for a very long time, from a young age of 11.
And I know that you don't just play by yourself. You play with a lot of other people as well. Do you want to speak a little bit about your band?
Of course. So I've got a band page at the moment on Facebook. If you look us up, Delirium Band. Now we focus on, I guess, a traditional and also contemporary style of Cretan music. So we don't just want to play all the old school stuff. We want to change it up a little bit, make it a little bit more modern, let's say, for an Australian audience.
It's good that you experiment with some contemporary music. When people think about Cretan music a lot, they think Sirto, they think
That's it.
Godillas, they think really heavy traditional things. But the culture is always changing, and what you guys are doing are bringing Cretan elements and modern elements and contemporizing traditional folk music.
That's right. So with Cretan music, it's very similar to rock and roll, believe it or not, because it's very fast paced and very heavy in a sense. So you can bring it down and take it to a nice soulful level and, you know, make it enticing to your audience in that manner. But for the most part of it, like you said, the sirto, the sigano, the petozali, all of these dances, the traditional dances we have, are very, very powerful because I guess they came from a wartime. So if we take that into consideration, when we're playing on stage, you might feel that fierce energy a little bit.
The energies around musicians and music changes depending on who plays it and what your influences are. And I was curious, How did you get into the Lyra?
As young as I can remember, I've been listening to Cretan music, and that's my grandfather's influence on my life. So from as little as maybe 4 years old, I can remember going to Cretan events in Sydney, holding up a Greek flag, wearing my little stoli there. And that was all because of them, my grandparents. My grandfather always at his house would have pareas, he'd have people playing music at his home. I'd always be exposed to that sort of environment, you know, people drinking around, playing music, having a bit of food, good pareas, you know what I mean? And that helped me a lot, I guess, to understand the music and understand what the culture is also his brother actually toured around Australia playing the Cretan lute.
Wow.
So his brother Spiro Vadakis, he toured around Australia playing the lute back in the days, and he was a very prominent lute player back then. Very good vocals, very, very good musician. So having these influences in your family, it's just bound to happen, I guess. And you can see from a young kid, if the child is really locked onto the music from a young kid, you'll know that that's what they want to do with their lives. And that was, for me, I was always locked onto the music. I was always, big wide eyes, just watching, listening, and I loved it, you know what I mean? My grandfather, he used to sing a lot in the home, even with nobody there. He just used to always sing Rizitika, Rizitika, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So having grown up with that, it was just bound to happen. There was no getting out of it, I don't think.
It's a beautiful connection, not just because it's a very everyday experience of Cretan music, but a very casual social one too. When people are educated in these clubs, they, like we said earlier, they get the heaviness of the music sometimes and the weight of the tradition. But it sounds like you're singing at home, singing with friends. And I think where you're taking your music sounds like it's following a similar trajectory where you're modernizing it for who's in the room, you're picking up a different energy, and you're using traditional notes and traditional motifs in a different way, a way that you connect with it.
That's correct. Yeah, so we're always feeding off the audience's energy. So, for instance, if I'm at Bar Russo playing at a very, sort of hippie environment.
For the audience as well, Bar Russo is a world music bar in Brunswick that's given you guys a great chance and is open to all kinds of world music.
Yeah, they've been amazing throughout even coronavirus as well, especially like after lockdowns, when they open up, they're straight away on the phone to us like, hey, you guys want a gig? We've got an available date, which has been great for us because during lockdown, as you guys know, we've been stuck at home doing nothing.
Of course. But as you were saying, when you're playing to a hippie audience or a bit of a non-Greek audience at Bar Russo, how does your energy change?
That's right. So for us, we feel more relaxed because you don't have that arcos, you don't have that not fear, but that almost anxiousness of, well, this person that I'm playing for, they know exactly what I'm playing and they want to hear it exactly that way, for instance. Whereas when you got a hippie audience, you can just really, really ride the instrument and really ride your melodies, and no one's going to care. They're just all going to love it, and they're all going to be really passionate about what you're doing because you're feeling what you're doing. Do you know what I mean? Of course. It gives us more of an opportunity to feel free. It gives us a sense of freedom when we're playing there. There's no restriction. There's no, I have to play this certain way because Theo over there, he knows the song, Yeah. It's not like that. It's, these guys don't know what we're doing. We can play as contemporary or as traditional as we want.
I think that reflects very much the perspective of an artist as well. You've gotten deeper into the art form and you want to expand on what Cretan music is. Whereas a lot of people listening at these traditional regional clubs, like you said, they want to hear something played the same way.
That's right.
And
I think in the same key.
Of course. And I think sometimes when we talk about regional or ethnic music gets shut off, maybe it's actually the audience or the communities themselves who are shutting it off because they're coming with a closed mindset. It has to be this way and it stays static. Maybe we should look at ourselves and open up our idea of what Cretan music can be and the influences that we can share with and collaborate with.
That's correct, man. So we can't say that, all cultural clubs are this certain way inclined. We can't go ahead and say that, but we can say for the most part of it, I'd say, we're closed-minded as a culture. We don't want to change. We don't want to expand our horizons when it comes to the dance and the song. And even myself personally, like I've gone to dance groups back in Sydney where it was more contemporary dancing. And I was thinking, what am I doing here? Yeah. My closed mind was, what am I doing here at that time? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we'll have to learn to embrace this.
I think there's a time and a place for it. I think that
that's right.
Tradition has to be maintained and slow evolution is something that I appreciate. But at the same time, I'm not saying throw everything out and change everything, but we need to be open to change and innovation, I guess you could say.
Like Frasescacci, for example, and Stratacci. They're very contemporary. You hear some of their songs, it's crazy, man, what they're doing with it. And it's very much soulful and rock and roll, like what I'm saying. You feel that in their music. But then, of course, the they're from Kanya, so they're playing that full heavy kisamitiko as well. They're not going to change the tradition, but when you get an opportunity to express yourself, right, that's what they're doing. They're expressing themselves in how they know. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I do agree with you on that. So we can't get rid of tradition, no, but we should give that musician a little bit of freedom to be themselves and then come back to it.
What's the current Lyra music scene like in Greece?
So in Crete, it's very prominent. You're always going to have that. You're always going to have your Lyra, your lute, your standard band. The violin's picking up again, which is pretty awesome. So, you know, Marzachi, for example, Fraziskachi, like we mentioned, and a lot more other violin players are getting out there again, which is cool. That's really traditional for Crete. So it's nice to see that they're going back to the old school. In regards to Lyra in general, right? So all over Greece, there's different Lyras. There's a Politiki Lyra, there's a Thrakiotiki Lyra. We have the Pontian Lyra, for example. And I've seen collaborations with Pontian Lyra, Cretan Lyra with Vasili Skula, and I can't remember the Pontian Lyra's name, apologies. But they've done a few things on ERT, you know, a few lives, and they've done an Erotokrito, Όσο βαρούν τα σίδερα, Τούτο το μήνα, these sort of songs, which are more listening acoustic songs. You will see that it is very prominent still, and I think people do enjoy it. Now, there is that, I guess if we say with Lirachi, he's sort of a little bit more modern in that sense. So he'll do the laiko sort of tragudi as well. You know, he'll be playing the lira, but with Paula, for example, they've made a song together. They've collaborated and they've made something. But there's really no ends to the instrument. It's your mind that's going to stop you from taking yourself to that next level. And if that's the level you want to take it to, well, you're the only person holding yourself back.
What's the music scene like in Australia? Maybe not the Lyra scene because it's quite small, but the general Greek live music scene, as you say it.
The music scene in general here, it's really diverse in Melbourne, and hands down, probably the best city that's got the most diversity for music, I think. So that'll be world music, that'll be, you know, even going to rap, reggae, going into all these different genres. You'll find it here in Melbourne. And it's cool to collaborate with these people, you know what I mean? For the Greek music scene in Melbourne, it's, again, really diverse and really great. You've got some great local talent here, a lot of great local talent. Yosif Tsobanopoulos, for example, he plays a lot of different instruments, a lot of different regions, you know what I mean? Same with Paddy, like I mentioned. Paddy plays all regions of Greece, not just Crete. And it's cool to see that.
Anything with a string. I feel like I could tie a shoelace to my bed and he'll work out a way to play music from it.
That's it. He'd make it sound nice, you know what I mean? But the music scene in Melbourne is very diverse and it's really, really good.
I was very curious, and I wanted to touch on this, on the emergence of nights like Open Jam, which was bringing modern Greek contemporary music to Australia. Before the crisis, when there wasn't a prominent wave of new Greek migration, I grew up at a time where our Greek culture and our music culture was basically like frozen in the 50s, frozen in the 60s. You'd listen to Mitropanos, you'd listen to Zebekika and to these old Cretan music that you'd go back to Greece and they'd be like, what are you listening to? This is old stuff.
Yeah.
But what I saw represented with Open Jam was this wave of new Greek migrants, first generation migrants in the last 10 years, who actually brought in modern Greek culture. So what was your involvement like with contemporary Greek music in Australia?
My involvement there was mainly to expand myself as a musician and expand the horizon, so to speak, expand my mind and let it escape from what we've been taught, what we've been conditioned to as Cretan Greeks in Australia, third generation. We've been taught, like you're saying, to listen to that old 1950s Cretan traditional song and you know, great.
It's great. But it is great, but
it is. I'll touch back on that after because that plays a vital part in our music in general for any musician, right? But my involvement in that was mainly working and collaborating with artists that aren't even Greek, who play an electric guitar, who play electric bass, who play drums, and let's make it modern. Let's change it and let's see how we go. So my involvement there was mainly expanding my own horizons and trying to take my music to another level.
To pivot back to the lyra, I was curious, what do you like seeing in a lyra player?
Pathos, passion overall. Like, you could not be the best lyra player, but if you've got a lot of passion, I'll sit there and I'll watch you. You know what I mean? I'll sit there and I'll take it in and I'll really enjoy it. I'll feel what you're feeling. Because when someone's really passionate about what they're doing, they're going to give off their emotion to the audience, whoever it may be. So if that person's got a lot of passion, you're going to feel what they're feeling and you can really connect to them. You can really connect to that musician. Now, technically, if we want to talk technical things, I love hearing someone that sounds like Mundachi. For me, I grew up with Costa Mundachi in my ear, and that's talking about the 1950s again. You know what I mean? Going back to that era. But if I hear a lyra that sounds really Mundachico, and for example, it's Dimitri Vakaki, Klostraichi, even Magellaki, Yorgo, right? All these musicians, they've got that influence in them. They've got Mundaki's influence. And for the part of it, all of those musicians were taught by Mundaki himself. So that's where it comes out into their playing. And it's a very, very intricate playing style. Lots of trills, lots of spills, and you can't grasp it. You really can't grasp it. It's a very, very technical form of playing. I love the diversity of Crete, just in general. Let me just put that out there. Because yes, I do love the Kanyotico style. So that's the Mundakico sort of style of lyra. But I also love the Sitiako style of lyra, which is really melodic and not so trilly, not so fast, it's totally different. And then if we hit Rhythmno again, it's a lot heavier, and I really love the heaviness of Rhythmno. So if I could combine all of those together, I think that's where I sort of, being an Australian-born Greek, that's sort of where my head is like, I want a bit of this, I want a bit of that, I want a bit of here, I want a bit of there, and I want to add them all together. Yeah. So for an example, Leonida Clado, he sort of added Chania with Rhythmno, and he made his style. So that was Mundachi and Scordalo, and he made Clado. That was his style. It was trilly, but it was also give the lyra a break. So Scordalo was very, very much, he'd play the lyra really basic in the sense of he'd let the lyra breathe, not in his playing style, the way he'd let the lyra breathe. He'd give it a second. Yeah. Like he wouldn't. So Clado found the in-between for himself. He worked out where to let it breathe and how to trill like Mundachi, and it was pack it up.
George, unfortunately, we need to bring this to a close. I was wondering, what's the most Cretan thing in your house?
So in my house, the most Cretan thing I have would be my instruments. And I'd like to show you my Lirachi. So this is something I purchased from Iraklio. It's a little bit smaller than the traditional Cretan lyra, and it's tuned 2 notes higher. So the Lirachi, it's a more traditional Cretan lyra. So if you look at videos of Mundaki, when he was playing back in the day before Stagachi made the lyra, so Stagachi is the base of our Cretan lyra today. And I can show you the pear-shaped lyra. So that's a pear shape, right? Yep. Whereas before Stagachi started to produce those lyres, it was something very similar to this. Not as intricate at the top, more like a chochlio, so the snail at the top. But it was very, very narrow and thin, and it was mainly tuned higher. Wow. So if you hear a lot of protomastores who play, they're singing really loud and really almost like they're screaming. Why it's tuned higher is because back in the day, if we were to have a parea with yourself and another 10, 15 people, there was no microphones and no speakers. So we'd need something that's tuned up where you can really hear that instrument, and my voice would be really, really prominent.
Thank you so much for being on the show today. Before we let you go, do you have any final comments for the viewers?
Look, just if anybody's interested in playing music, give us a call or something, message us on Delirium. If you're interested in coming to any gigs that we may have, again, feel free to message us and we can keep you guys posted. For anybody that's dancing, playing, just really keep it up and make sure you're always watching lots and lots of videos. If you're practicing any instrument, at least 1 hour a day, you keep at it and never doubt yourself. That's the biggest problem I think we humans have, is we have a lot of self-doubt, and just really have some confidence in yourself when you're doing it. Even if you make a mistake, that mistake might become something really good later on. And that does show through a lot of musicians. So just keep up the good work, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, George.
No worries,
have a beautiful night, and thank you for being on the show.
You too. Appreciate it. Good night, everyone.
That was another fantastic, none other than the best ever Studio Crete episode of the world. If you want to find out more, like us on Facebook, subscribe to the YouTube channel, check out the Symbolism, and check out the Cretan Brotherhood website. Thanks for joining us at Studio Crete. Yassas, Daleme.